Instead of having Yogi Berra music today, we have Yogi Bear music. Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers, where we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We like this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. Could we please join in our opening hymn number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. Please be seated. Please join in the affirmation in the order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Are there announcements? Yes?
Usual one about Course of Miracles. We continue with our fearless leader, Noah, who keeps us on track, and Richard, who mostly keeps us on track. More than I keep us on track. Kenny Bachman's here, and Alan is on the line. We find that it's a stimulating conversation that we have. We also have Andy West Drive and Malden, who joins in with us as well, and we discuss deep philosophical things that may or may not intrigue you.
If you're newly attending, we hope you'll give us your email. There's a guest book out there. We promise that if you give us your email address, we will not be like CVS. We will not send you an email every day for the rest of your life. But we will send you an email about the upcoming service. Are there other announcements, Kit?
Just wanted to remind everyone, thank you first of all, Rich, for being our guest speaker today. Our guest ministers next week is someone that won something last year, Ken Reeves. So please come.
Any others? The invocation today is two stanzas, I should say, from a poem by Emily Dickinson that I just happen to like a lot. She tended to stay home when the other people in her house went to church on Sunday. And she wrote a poem in defense of that. And it goes like this. Some keep the Sabbath going to church. I keep it staying at home with a bobolink for a chorister and an orchard for a dome. God preaches, a noted clergyman, and the sermon is never long. So while others are getting to heaven at last, I'm going all along. Could we please be joined in a spirit of prayer or meditation? This is by a UU minister named Liz Parrish. O thou spirit of baseball, of sunny days and endless summers, O spirit of hope and humor, be with us always, even in the off season. Remind us to keep our time open-ended, with the pace set not by a clock, but by events. Remind us not to rush our plays or those of others. Teach us to relish our food and not focus too much on the scoreboard. Remind us that we are forever children, that we always have one more base hit left in us, that summers always begin full of hope and endless if we want them to, and that we can always thrill to the sounds of the game and the warmth of sunlight on our faces. And in all our forays into the world, guide us through the obstacles we must face, and bring us safely back home again to people who greet us with open arms, claps on the back, and even high fives. And especially, thou persevering, eternal Spirit, help us to remember that it's never over till it's over, that there's always hope down to the last play of the game. And even then there's hope in the next game or the next season. And even when the last out is called on us at the end of our career, may we go out knowing that we have played our best. Amen. And now let us be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation. Most of the sayings attributed to Yogi Berra came about in conversations, especially with reporters who would write down the odd thing that he had just said. Someone said, "Yogi, what time is it?" And he said, "You mean now?" "Yogi, you want your pizza cut into 4 or 8 slices?" 4. I don't think I could eat 8. "Has Don Mattingly exceeded your expectations?" I'd say he's done more than that. Yogi was a spokesman for Yoo-hoo, the chocolate beverage. And someone asked him, "Is Yoo-hoo hyphenated?" And he said, "No, ma'am, it isn't even carbonated." Another player listening to the radio listening to the news, reported, "Dublin, Ireland has just elected a Jewish mayor." And Yogi said, "Only in America." Yogi and his wife Carmen paid a visit to the Vatican, and Cardinal Spellman of New York asked Yogi, "Did you have an audience with the Pope?" And Yogi said, "No, but I talked with him." Miss John Lindsay, the wife of the New York mayor back in the 70s, at the end of a game on a very hot day, said to Yogi, "You're managing to look cool." And he said, "You don't look so hot yourself." He said, I usually take a 2-hour nap from 1 to 4. He said, always go to other people's funerals, otherwise they won't go to yours. He was born in 1925 in St. Louis. He was the child of 2 Italian immigrants, and he was baptized Lorenzo Pietro Berra. When he died in 2015 at 90, his gravestone had an English version of his name, Lawrence Peter Berra. But it also said after that, in quotation marks, Yogi. He acquired that nickname early on. A teammate who had seen, I think, a newsreel of a Hindu religious teacher, a yogi, in meditation, thought that Yogi, when he was sitting on the bench waiting for his turn to bat, he was sitting with his legs crossed and a kind of far-off look on his face, that he looked like the Yogi of the newsreel. And the name stuck, possibly because he had this habit of saying kind of odd things. He kind of garbled the English language. He had dropped out of school in the 8th grade and had never liked it or done very well in it, and had been a baseball person all his life. Before talking about the quirky things he said, though, let me say this: he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was a good player. He had a 20-year career as a player and another 20-year career as a coach and manager. He played for the Yankees for most of his career, and Mickey Mantle was on that team, and Joe DiMaggio was on that team. But Yogi was the best clutch hitter on the team. That is, at the end of a difficult game when your team really needs a run, it's a very tense situation. It was Yogi who would produce, not those other, more famous hitters. And some of you may know the name Bill James. He's a baseball statistician. He worked for the Red Sox for several years. In his estimate, Yogi was the best catcher ever. That's Bill James. Yogi was the best catcher ever. In 2005, The Economist, which is a British news magazine, The Economist, decided that Yogi, this is in 2005, so Yogi was 80 years old. Yogi was the wisest fool of the last 50 years. And when they said fool, I don't think they were being denigrating. They were thinking of fool in the sense of a court jester. A court jester was someone, was the only, the court jester would not only entertain the king or queen, but was often the only person who could tell the king or queen the truth and get away with it. Yogi had a way of telling what seemed to be the truth. It wasn't really clear whether he intended it or not, but he said things that could be interpreted as profound truths. He reminds me in a way of Emily Dickinson, whose poem was The Invocation. She wrote another poem whose first line was, "Tell all the truth, but tell it slant." Slant meaning in a slanted way, in an indirect way. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. And that's sort of what these famous yogi-isms remind me of. I'd like to talk about 5 of them. And I guess I'm just going to say why they sort of seem wise to me, or they remind me of something that seems wise. Let's put it that way. Yogi said once, you can observe a lot by watching. You can observe a lot by watching. And I'm reminded of a sermon that I delivered here a couple of years ago called Paying Attention. And the whole point of the sermon was, if you pay attention to what's going on, all the little details, life is richer if you do that. In other words, yeah, you can observe a lot by watching. Number 2, if you can't, Yogi said this when he was a manager to a new player. If you can't imitate him, don't copy him. If you can't imitate him, don't copy him. This player was trying to imitate another player who was very good. And I think Yogi's saying, but you can't do it completely, you know? So you shouldn't try. If you can't imitate him, don't copy him. I'm reminded of a Hasidic tale that you may have heard before, because preachers like to quote Hasidic tales. The Hasidim, the H-A-S-I, the Hasids, but the plural in Hebrew is Hasidim. The Hasidim were a Jewish sect in Eastern Europe in the 18th century. And their tales about their rabbis have been collected. And one of the Hasidic tales is about a man named Zusya, Z-U-S-Y-A, who kept berating himself for not measuring up to the standards of the heroes of Jewish history. And his rabbi said to him, Zusya, if at the end of your life you meet the Almighty will not say to you, Zusya, why were you not Moses? The Almighty will say to you, Zusya, why were you not Zusya? Why were you not Zusya? Why were you not true to yourself? And I think that's what Yogi's saying. If you can't imitate him, don't copy him, right? Be yourself, be yourself. Develop your own talents, your own way of doing things. Very famously, Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over. In fact, that was quoted in the prayer by Liz Parrish earlier. It ain't over till it's over. In 1973, Yogi was the manager of the New York Mets baseball team, and it was the middle of the summer, and the team was 9 games out of first place in its division. And a reporter said to Yogi, well, it's the end of July, you're 9 games out, might as well forget it, right, for this season. And Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over. referring to the season. And that year, they won the division. The Mets won the division. It ain't over till it's over. It there to Yogi meant the season, but it couldn't mean a single game, or it could mean a career, or it could mean your life. And of course, that's why I think I'm reminded of wisdom by that. Okay, I don't know exactly what Yogi intended, but he reminds me of something I think is very wise. I want to read you a couple of sentences from a UU minister named Robbie Walsh. Until his death about 5 years ago, he was the minister in Duxbury. He said once, this is in one of his newsletters, he said, the meaning of a life is not contained within one act or one day or 1 year. As long as you're alive, the story of your life is still being told. Your life is still unfolding. And the meaning of your life, therefore, is still open. The meaning of your life is still open. It's true that what's done is done, but nothing is settled. And if nothing is settled, then everything matters. If nothing is settled, everything matters. And that's what I think of when I hear, it ain't over till it's over. Yeah, life ain't over till it's over. The meaning of life ain't over till it's over. Number 4, you can't think and hit at the same time. You can't think and hit at the same time. Yeah, if you're playing on a baseball team and the other team has a really good hitter who's a real threat to you, something you can do, a mean thing you can do, is to go up to that hitter before the game and say, could you show me how you hold your bat? And when that guy or girl or gal comes up to bat, he or she'll be thinking about how they hold the bat, and therefore probably won't get a hit because you can't think and hit at the same time. Yogi is saying that our conscious minds are only a small part of life. You can't think and hit at the same time. Hitting a baseball is something that it does involve your conscious mind to an extent. You have to think about where to put your feet and at least initially how to hold the bat. But after that, it's a matter of muscle memory. It's kind of like typing, right? If you've learned to type, it's something that happens automatically. It's not the conscious part of your mind, or playing an instrument, or kissing. You know, you might have thought about it the first time, but after a while, no. I'm reminded of a quotation by the French philosopher Pascal, who lived in the 17th century. He said, the heart has its reasons, which the reason knows nothing about. The heart has its reasons, which the reason knows nothing about. The conscious mind, the reason, active thinking is just not all there is to being alive or being a successful person and so on. Yeah, I think that's true. You can't think and hit at the same time. You can't think and hit at the same time. And then 5, and this is the one I chose for the title of the sermon, 90% of the game is half mental. Now, actually, the Yogi scriptures have 2 different versions of this. Some say that what he really said was 90% of the game is mental, the other half is physical. But others say that he said 90% of the game is half mental. This is a contrast to the previous one. The previous one was kind of downgrading the conscious mind in favor of the unconscious mind. This is elevating the conscious mind over outside circumstance, I think. 90% of the game is half mental. He reminds me of Epictetus. Epictetus is a philosopher I've been reading lately. He's someone who lived at the same time as Jesus. He wasn't a Christian or a Jew. He was just a Roman. He was a slave for half his life. He was a slave. And he was not a field hand. He was an educated slave. He was a business manager for his owner. But he had no control over enormous parts of his life, right? He couldn't control the food he would have to eat. He couldn't control the clothing he would have to wear. He couldn't control when he got up or when he went to bed. He wouldn't control how he spent his days. He was a slave. He was property. And while he was a slave, he worked out a philosophy that emphasized all of the ways in which he was really free. And later, when he was about 35, his owner died and he became the property of the owner's son, and the owner's son freed him. And he established a philosophical school. And he gave lectures on these thoughts he had about how, even though circumstances are bad, in some ways we can all really be free if we use our conscious mind in a certain way. This is the emphasis on the conscious mind over outside circumstance. And people attended his lectures and wrote them down. And there are, I think, 4 volumes of the lectures of Epictetus that still exist. I want to read you just a little bit, just a few little excerpts. Some things are under our control, he said, while others are not. Under our control are what we think, or the choices we make, or the judgments we make. Not under our control are, and remember he was a slave, our body, our property, our reputation, our career. These things are not under our control. If we confuse the two, now I'm just summarizing the rest of this long paragraph. If you take something not in your control and think of it as being in your control, you're going to have nothing but trouble. But if you keep the 2 categories distinct, if you think, I'm reading now, if you think only what is your own to be your own, and what is not your own to be as it really is not your own, that is, if you maintain this distinction between what's in your control and what's not in your control, then no one will ever be able to exert compulsion upon you. No one will hinder you. You'll blame no one. You'll find fault with no one. You'll do absolutely nothing against your will. You will have no personal enemy. No one will harm you, for neither is there any harm that can touch you. It is not things themselves that disturb people, and by things he means external events. It's not things themselves that disturb people, but the judgments they make about these things. It's not that an external thing is bad that makes you miserable. It's your judgment that it's bad that makes you miserable, he's saying. Disease is an impediment to the body, but not to the character or moral purpose. Lameness, his owner once injured Epictetus so badly, his leg was broken and it didn't heal properly. And he spent the rest of his life limping painfully. Lameness is an impediment to the leg, but not to the character or the moral purpose. Somehow, this is what I think of when I read the Yogi as 90% of the game is half mental. I'm thinking, of course, of the game as being life. 90% of it is half mental. If you're born with epilepsy, say, or some other chronic crippling disease, if your parents are both dead early on, and you're an orphan, or they don't get along, or one or both of them is abusive, or if you're mired in poverty for your entire life, you can be free and a success if you focus on the things that are in your control. Those things are not in your control. To put it another way, what's important is not the hand that you're dealt, but how you play it. Right? I think that's what Yogi is saying. What's important is not the hand that you're dealt, but what makes you a success or not in life is how you play the hand that you happen to be dealt. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the famous poet and lecturer, was a Unitarian minister for a while. And he said once, make your own Bible. Make your own Bible. Well, if I were to do that, there would be a small book in my Bible called the Book of Yogi. And now for the support of this congregation and its work, the morning offering will be gratefully received and I hope freely given. Now it's our time of sharing joys and concerns. The theory is that a joy shared is multiplied and a concern or sorrow shared is divided. Yes?
I have a very small family, and I don't see them anywhere near enough, but I try my best. And so I have a nephew who is in Maine, who is a brilliant mind, not terribly overly, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, every day it's practical, like, say again, practical, no, not practical, commonsensical. Yeah, but smart, really smart. When I leave school, he's got a master's degree, he writes to the AP, covered red stuff that he's written, covers the marine life for the state of Maine. And he said one day when he and my son were walking home from buying pizza, bringing pizza home for supper, we were in Maine. And Justin said to Patrick, Justin was my son, he said, it's so dark already. And Patrick said, yeah, it's late, really early out here. And he was serious.
This is sort of a book report, actually. A book I read just a couple of weeks ago. Dennis Lehane, let's see, not seize the day, but not the day, but the first chapter is, pardon? The given day? The given day, right. The 1918 World Series, which was Boston Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs. the first chapter is the Cubs and the Red Sox on the same train, railroad train, coming from Chicago to Boston. And the train breaks down in the middle of Ohio. And Babe Ruth, who had just pitched a no-hitter, a shutout in the first game, it was 1-0 in the first game. He's the pitcher. He's drunk as usual. Kind of wanders out of the train and finds a pickup game being played out near the tracks by two pickup teams of black players. And it goes on from there. But a couple of things I did learn was that the 1918 World Series was the earliest World Series ever played. It was all played in the month of September. The season had been short because of World War I. It was also the first time that Star Spangled Banner was played at a game of any kind. Evidently, the first game was so boring that the seventh inning stretch, the band started playing the Star Spangled Banner, and the people really got into it. They started singing. So it kind of blossomed from there. But it was not the national anthem until something like 1931 or so. It was declared. So anyway, that's not a little bit cool.
As a follow on from that, when I was in college, I ran what's called the party train. So, and the train that they wanted, was the number of the train. One of the drivers from Chicago to Boston, number 28. And I stopped at number 28 to look for one passengers that I had to go to college to get on the train. That's when I number 28. And I had to be on number 28. That was the number. Wow.
So this week I'm going to experience the joys of spinal surgery. So I would I'd like to ask that you have your angels call packages and pass along goodwill. I recently learned that when you pray to your angels or spirit guides, you should pray out loud. Because we have free will, they can't interfere in our lives until we ask them. So please pray out loud.
I'm kind of worried about that Victoria, so we haven't heard from her for a while.
I got a text from her yesterday.
Oh, good.
Yeah, just, she thanked me for a card and, said her cat was Ruth. Her cat died, so that's really hit her heart because she's, and kind of, but that was yesterday.
Oh, good. Good.
How much another Debbie Ross is still having a very hard time. Positive thoughts being sent out.
Anybody else?
Well, I have a joy, yesterday we were on a video chat with our, children and grandchildren, and as some of you know, I get that far along, one is in Zurich and one is in Austin, and, the grandchildren have this bit too. But, Benjamin clapped for the first time, and he was so delighted with it, he just kept clapping. And Hillary said, when he woke up this morning, I think that's what
Oh, yes.
I had my joy, of course, of being here every Sunday, doing what I do here, and being a part of this Unitarian church is a blessing for me. It's been rough this week. I'd like to know if anyone would keep in their hearts and prayers. My family is missing down on the eastern side of Tampa Bay, which got destroyed by Lakeland. I haven't had any contact with them for almost 4 days or so. I'm still trying to go through the media, through social media, TikTok, and so on and so forth. sending out messages and seeing if anybody might. My family was kind of stubborn because they wanted to be in the center of the state because of the way, but they knew the storm was coming, so it was a fact if they stayed to fight it out or they left because of, you know, saving power for your phone and so on. And I haven't had anything or heard anything since then. And I just hope prayers and just things would work out. That's all I'm asking for, prayers.
This is your mother and your sister.
My mother, my sister, one of my nieces, and I'm not sure if my older sister, who's living in South Carolina, had joined my mom, but I know they were thinking on going to South Carolina, but the storm ended up in South Carolina, so I have no idea of all that stuff, what happened, where it went, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So it's kind of
Yeah.
hard right now to figure it out.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I enjoy my daughters and Trudeau, and they really get angry. They survived, she and her father survived, and two members did, and destruction of the neighborhood was devastating. But, no flooding because they have those, you know, things that take all the water away. But it's the wind, really, you know, part of the house. They're gonna be fine. They're very positive. I get back to work, and, but it's, she said, it's pretty messy. They still don't have power, but her partner works in the grocery store, so it's gonna be good. It's a blessing. My prayers for you.
Let's sing our closing hymn, 201, Glory, Glory.
For any music readers looking at what's written on the page, that's not what I'm playing. I don't like harmonization in this book, so I'm playing the same tune, but a more straightforward harmonization. And note there are 5 verses down there. And for anybody who wonders why do I know this tune, also Go the Circle Beyond Over. It's that tune.
Life is sweeter, so much sweeter, since that day on. We like dancing, hallelujah. All around me, since I've been gone. All around me, since I've been gone. May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love. Amen.
Okay, we've got one more bear song here. And this is a sing-along. So I won't force you to sing, but I'll sing the verse. I'll sing the chorus, I said first, and then go into the verse, chorus. You'll get it here. This is actually the title of this is Waltzing with Bears. And over the years, my perspective on it has changed. As I first heard it 30 years ago, I thought it was a funny song about some crazy uncle, but these days, Uncle Walter, this is Uncle Walter, by the way. Walter knows the song, so he's okay with it. But crazy Uncle Walter goes waltzing with bears. So here we go. Okay, here's the chorus. He goes waltzing with bears. Raggy bears, shaggy bears, baggy bears too. There's nothing on earth Uncle Walter won't do, so he can go waltzing, so he can go waltzing with bears. I went upstairs in the middle of the night. I tiptoed in and I turned on the light. And to my surprise, there was no one inside. So my Uncle Walter was waltzing at night. He goes waltzing with bears. Raggy bears, shaggy bears, baggy bears too. There's nothing on earth Uncle Walter won't do, so he can go waltzing, waltzing, so he can go waltzing with bears. I gave Uncle Walter a new coat to wear, but when he came home, it was covered with hair. And when lately I've noticed several new tears, well, I'm sure Uncle Walter goes waltzing with bears. He goes waltzing with bears. Raggy bears, shaggy bears, baggy bears too. There's nothing on earth Uncle Walter won't do, so he can go waltzing, so he can go waltzing with bears. We told Uncle Walter that he should be good and do all the things that we said he should. But I know that he'd rather be out in the woods. Oh, I'm afraid we might lose him for good. 'Cause he goes waltzing with bears. Raggy bears, shaggy bears, baggy bears too. There's nothing on earth Uncle Walter won't do, so he can go waltzing, so he can go waltzing with bears. We begged and we pleaded, oh, please won't you stay? We managed to keep him at home for one day, but the bears all barged in and they took him away. Now he's waltzing with pandas and he can't understand us. The bears all demand one dance a day. He goes waltzing, waltzing with bears. Ragged there's shaggy, there's baggy bears too. There's nothing on earth Uncle Walter won't do, so he can go waltzing, waltzing, so he can go waltzing, waltzing with bears. Turns out there's a controversy about that song. Dr. Seuss had written a version of it and copyrighted it, and then a couple of other people, Dale Markin and some other people had, I guess, changed it a little bit and were singing it and got a cease and desist from Dr. Seuss's lawyers. But I don't think it went too far, so no one's coming for me.
That would be unbearable.